Today I'll be making an end grain cutting board made out of maple, cherry, and walnut. This is a Caleb's fine woodworking design. Here you can see I'm getting a straight edge on one side of each board. That straight edge will ride up the fence very nicely as I cut up my boards, my maple to 7/8, my cherry and my walnut to 1 3/8. My cherry and walnut boards will be planed down to 1/2 inch thick. When putting my maple boards through, I will give it a 1/4 turn each time it goes through so that it remains square at 1/2 inch. Turning to my table saw, I need to lift the blade and tilt it to a 45-degree angle. I move my fence over so that when I send my cherry and walnut boards, it gets 45-degree angle just on the edge of the board. With all my pieces dimensioned, I can glue them up. With the maple sitting on the table, the cherry will sit up against it, and the walnut will sit on top with the two 45-degree angles together. Clamping them up is a little tricky. I need pressure on all sides. I can now leave it overnight to dry. The next day, I can take the clamps off. During any glue up, you'll always get some squeeze out. So what I'll do next is try and scrape out as much glue as I can. What I don't want to happen is my blades get all gummed up in my planer. I'll now send these glued up pieces through the planer. I'll give it a 1/4 turn each time, making sure that everything remains square. At the table saw, I cut myself some strips of maple. I'll send these through the planer and plane them down to a 1/4 inch. These will go in between my already glued up pieces. During this glue up, I have to be very careful and make sure my pieces are oriented in the right direction. The pattern I'm looking for is walnut, maple, walnut, maple. A day later, once everything's dry, I can take all the clamps off. The next step is to cut up more maple. Send it through the planer to a 1/4 inch, just like the other strips of maple. These larger pieces will now be glued up into a panel. We're making an end grain cutting board, and this is a very important step. Once everything's dry, I can now take the clamps off. Grabbing my previous glue up, walnut side up, I put my new maple panel on top, glued together. I need pressure in the middle, so I grab a board and 2 parallel clamps and tighten it down. The next day, everything's dry, and I remove all the clamps. With my router and a flush trim bit, I get a clean side. That flat side will now ride the fence, and I'll trim up the other side. My desired thickness for my cutting board is 1.5 inches, so on my table sled, I hook up a stock block and cut away. And here we are finally at the last glue up. I'm placing a 2x4 on either end so that it'll catch the snipe on my planer. Once dry, I can send it through my planer. Keeping in mind that this is end grain, this is very dangerous. I'm taking very light passes each time. Scribbling pencil on the board allows me to see where I have sanded. I'll do this all the way until 220 grit. So back at the table saw, I can cut off those sacrificial pieces of 2x4. On the jointer, I clean up all the edges. And all the edges get an 1/8 inch round over. And the board gets treated with some mineral oil. And here you see the 3D effect. The next day, I rub off all the excess and condition it with some board butter. I let it sit for 15 minutes and then buff it all away. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this content, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.